Hello and welcome to the Apex Engineered installation of the E36 angle kit. Today we're going to be installing the 80mm extension angle kit because this customer wants to have the full drift lock-to-lock setup, and we're going to go over what's included. So first we got the pair of the control arms, a pair of the 80mm extended tie rods, a pair of the drift knuckles, and a pair of the adjustable lollipops or caster adjusters. In the hardware sheet, you're going to have two of the largest socket head bolts, two of the smaller socket head bolts, two 14mm or 9/16 washers, two 12mm or ½ washers, two of the M14 nylon lock nuts, two of the 12mm nylon lock nuts, and then you have two sets of hex head bolts. Now we have a set that's a longer bolt for the 18-inch or larger wheels. We have a set for 17-inch wheels as well. Those bolts are a little bit shorter, and the shortness will allow you to be able to clear the 17-inch wheel. Finally, you have two of the nylon ½ nuts, bump steer spacers, as well as 4 misalignment spacers. So first we're going to go ahead and get everything kind of pre-installed before we go onto the car. First we're going to go ahead and take misalignment spacers and go ahead and install them onto the tie rods. Next we're going to go ahead and pre-install the tie rod bolts. Now here you can see the difference between the longer 18-inch wheel bolts and the shorter 17-inch wheel bolts. This customer wanted 17-inch wheels, so we're going to go ahead and supply him with this bolt. And the next thing you're going to do is go ahead and install the bolt firmly into the recessed area on the knuckle. And then you're going to flip the knuckle upside down and then install these bump steer spacers. Now the kit's going to come with 6 spacers, 3 on each side, but if you're running the 17-inch wheel or smaller, you're only going to be able to use one with the shorter bolt. We're going to go ahead and put that on and just hand tight that nut as well. We're going to go ahead and do it to the other side of the knuckle. So one thing that you should know is that you may have to mallet the bolt onto the knuckle itself. It's a super tight fit, and this ensures extreme angle predictability and no slop in your steering, but this you may have to hit with the mallet to drive it into the knuckle itself. It's a really easy process. If you ever had to undo it, just tap it in from the other side and the bolt will release. Now with the knuckles installed, we're going to go ahead and install the kit onto the car itself. All right, so here we're going to go ahead and install the angle kit. You can see here that this is the front of the car going this way. So we're going to go ahead and use the control arm in this orientation. And then for the lollipop, we're going to go ahead and use this side for the driver's side. So we're going to go ahead and install the control arm, and then we'll be right back to install the rest of the suspension parts. After you have the control arm installed, you're going to go ahead and install the knuckle. Now you notice the knuckle with the logo is going to go on the outside. So we're going to go ahead and position this on there. But before you do tighten the nut on there, make sure you get the bolt that goes inside the original tie rod hole. Put that bolt onto there as well. Otherwise you won't be able to get onto it once this is tightened. So before we tighten it, we're going to go ahead and put that bolt on. All right, so here we're going to go ahead and put that bolt on like that. And then from there, before anything, then we can go ahead and tighten the top nut down. You're going to tighten the top nut down to the factory torque specs. Next, once you have it in this position, where you have the 2 bolts that goes into the tie rod and the ball joint in place, go ahead and put the spindle onto our knuckle. Once you have the socket head bolts onto the spindle on the tie rod side, go ahead and put the washer and the nut on there. And the one on the ball joint, you don't want to have the socket head bolt go all the way through because you want to make sure you leave enough room for the nut to be able to pass. So here we have it. We have just enough room that we're able to get a nut in there. And then we can go ahead and push the bolt the rest of the way and tighten it once it's all done. And finally, once you have the knuckle installed onto the spindle, you can go ahead and install your tie rods. Now for this customer, we just added one of the bump steer spacers because he is running a 17-inch wheel. And the nice thing about the tie rod is if you ever need to add a bump steer spacer or remove it, you can simply undo the nut and reduce the amount of spacers and go ahead and retighten the nut as the hex head is encapsulated in here and will not spin. On top of that, with the socket head bolts, you do have easy access to both the ball joint bolt and the tie rod. And that sums up the install on your E36 angle kit.